to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Hi guys, I'm Sunny Chayes. It is a gorgeous day in LA and you are with me today on Singin' in the Rain. And as we always like to talk about our power of one and the power of one now, we need it more than ever with all of the craziness that's going on in the world. We need our power of one, so let's kick it up a notch. I am so excited today because I happen to have the brilliant, amazing, and incredible Mark Nepo on the show. He's Skyping in from New York. As most of you know, I don't like to Skype in because I like to clink glasses in the studio with the peeps. But because it's Mark, he can transcend any of the technology limitations. So we're going to be bringing him on, and we're just going to go deep in and go for it. I'm going to give you a little bit of edification, and then we're just going to drop it all in all the hour. He is one of Oprah's favorite peeps. He's been on Super Soul Sunday. He's been on the Live Your Best Life tour. He's definitely one of her faves, I know through some circles, and you'll find out why soon if you don't already know. He's a #1 bestseller author, many books. I have quite a number of them here to keep me company because Mark's not here. And he's just written a new book, which I just finished cover to cover last night. I mean, it took me a few days. Inside the Miracle, Enduring Suffering, Approaching Wholeness. And it is going to be a deep, wonderful, incredible, and I have no idea what kind of conversation we're going to have, and that's how I like it. That's my favorite way. So without further ado, let us get right to it, because we have 47 more minutes, and I want to use every second of it. So hi, Mark. Hi there in New York City.
It's great to be with you. Thanks for taking the time to have me.
Oh, gosh, my pleasure. I am going to just ask you to kind of dive in a little bit, and I have your books here. I want to do a little bit of reading and stuff like that myself, and just let you do whatever you want to do. So do you want to just chat a little bit about Inside the Miracle and start us off with that?
Yeah, sure. So as many people know, and some listeners may not, but my readers know that I'm a long-term cancer survivor, 28, going on 29 years ago, that I was in the heat of that journey. I just turned 65. I was in my 30s, my mid-30s, when I went through 2 bouts of cancer and almost died. And the chemo that I had and surgeries almost damaged me, and the chemo almost killed me. And so, this book, it gathers almost 30 years of my inquiry and learning about suffering and healing and wholeness. And the first thing, there's 2 things I'd like to share to start with. I mean, one is that what I share from my journey is an example and not an instruction. My work as a writer and a teacher is to introduce people to their own gifts and their own wisdom. And I believe that through relationship, we discover ourselves and each other. And the second thing that's important as we explore all this, to me, is that every person that's ever lived and will live has an opportunity to be dropped into the depth of life. And it doesn't have to be a catastrophic event that brings us there. For me, it was my cancer journey, but it could just as easily have been surprise or wonder or great love. Great love or great suffering or great mystery drop us into the depth of everything that's larger than us, that informs us. So I want to be careful that we don't deify suffering, that, we need to face and work with what we're given completely, and who knows what that'll be. So for me, it happened to be the cancer experience. But the thing that I'm sure of is that whatever is opened in us is much more important than whatever does the opening.
Ah, thank you for that. And I appreciate this on so many levels. And one thing I want to share with you is I do my best preparing for shows to do the reading and all of that. And one of the things that I appreciate so much about you is your pace in your life. And as I was reading this book, I really made sure that I read the whole thing. And one of the things that I will make a declaration to you right now about is that the areas in this book where you do the questions to walk with, which is often on throughout this book. And they are, Mark, so I'll explain it this way. Okay, first of all, I just wanted to say that I couldn't do the questions while I was doing the research because, well, because I needed to get through the book.
Sure.
And what I want to tell you viewers, you guys, I feel like if anything is a gift to you today in your life is to get this book and to find a way to answer these questions for yourself. This is how I felt about it, Mark, as I was going, and it was as if I was walking along a path, and I looked into a cave that was question 2, let's say. And the cave was so deep, and there were dark areas and light areas and areas of beauty and areas that were scary and areas of unknown. And I thought, okay, I just can't walk in right now. I have to keep walking. And then I would come to another cave that was yet more of all that I just said, and was like, okay, I will tell Mark on the show that I declare that I will go into these caves. I promise you I will do it. And that is my declaration to myself too, because the questions were so deep and so big that I thought, I don't even know if I have the answers. I don't even, they were so humbling to me.
Well, thank you.
And I feel like I've done a lot of self, stuff in my life. And it was like, whoa, I feel like a babe in the woods with these questions.
Oh, we all are. We all are. I think but I appreciate that, and thank you, because you've just demonstrated what I think is I want to offer for anyone who's listening or anyone who might read this book or my other books, and that is that to trust the timing of your own heart. And to bookmark, just like you said, yes, this is a place that, I do need to spend time here, but not today.
Yeah.
And I make a covenant with myself to return when it feels right. And so let's talk a little bit about questions, because I feel in our culture we have been miseducated about the life of questions. We live in such a practical surface world, such a speedy world, that we are taught at an early age that we ask questions to get answers. But life has taught me that we swing questions like lanterns ahead of us to see where we're going. We open questions like doors that we would like to walk through another with. We don't. Life has taught me when I'm in the middle of what's real that questions are really ground to walk together and to open and to enter. And it's not about answers. It's about the relationship that's uncovered with life by entering the questions.
Thank you for that. Oh my gosh. So with that, I'm going to actually read a couple of the questions just for our viewers now that we're talking about that. On one page, I just randomly picked this out because I just feel like it's perfect. In your journal, tell the story of a time you lost trust in life and how you restored that basic covenant. This is important to understand as the losing and regaining of our trust in life will continue to happen as part of the cycle of life. Woo! Woo! That's a that's a cave right there.
Well, let's pause as we read read that to talk about that a little bit, and this really speaks to something that I've been learning for a long time. I don't personally believe in an arrived state of enlightenment. I believe that as human beings, there's nothing as messy and magnificent as this journey of being human, and that and that's why by inhabiting our humanity to our fullest, and that's with faults and flaws and everything, and we can talk a little more about that. That's how we discover heaven here on earth. And I really feel so. So with that question, for instance, it begs us all that we, I think, really need to develop, each of us individually, a spiritual practice of return, which is very personal. That is, by the nature of being human, I will at times become confused and full of doubt and lose trust. It doesn't mean, so for example, we all know that there are days that are cloudy or rainy. It doesn't mean the sun has stopped shining.
That's right.
So it doesn't minimize our experience of cloudy or rainy weather, and that applies to psychological fog or emotional rain or damp and cloudy and gray moods or passages. We have to honor what we're going through, but we have to restore our trust that the sun hasn't stopped shining through any of it. And how do we regain that or outwait? I have a chapter in one of my books called Outweighting the Clouds.
That's so beautiful. I end up having actually, there's another thing that I want to read here, a question. And I have such a cough. I was like, I'm usually so high energy, and I thought, ooh, this is perfect because I'm kind of a more introspective person today, so that I meet your energy, I think. Another question that you write here is, in conversation with a friend or loved one, speak about a time of emergency and how that concentrated your awareness, and describe your shift of awareness once the emergency passed. How do you stay, excuse me, awake now without emergency prodding you? I love that question.
Well, and that comes directly out of my raw learning from my cancer journey. And I think anyone who's been through anything life-threatening or urgent can relate to this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the sense, that during my cancer journey, I was, as many people, I was so awake and alert and alarmed. And paradoxically, while I didn't want to be that close to perishing, it heightened all of my senses and experience and humbled me. And then, this was about a 3-year period where I went through so much. And finally, I was stable enough that, I was no longer life-threatening. And then I was home, and all my loved ones and friends went back to work, and so there I was in my bathrobe, alone in my living room on a very calm and beautiful day. And then I felt, wow, how do I stay as close to life when everyone's gone back to their lives and there's no emergency at stake, there's nothing pushing me? How do I keep that kind of wakefulness? And I think this is the journey of everyone, that, once we're awakened, however it is, no matter what way, whether it comes through great love or great suffering or surprise or something subtle, or, it from the great poet Rilke, the German poet Rainer Maria Rilke, and we know from his letters and his diaries that apparently for him there was no external circumstance that opened up his mind, his heart. Now, he was just in an attic in Paris one day, and all of a sudden, the bottom fell out. The way that he understood the world didn't make sense anymore, and he was kind of drifting. But, how do we move forward? And this is everybody's challenge.
Yes.
To stay awake once we're awake. There's a line in a poem of mine that goes, those who wake are the students, those who stay awake are the teachers.
Oof.
How we take turns.
Oof. The seeker and the sage trading off roles. Well, one thing that you're saying that I really want to dive a little deeper into is, you're saying about, earlier you were talking about deifying suffering, or deifying cancer in particular, whatever. And one of the places that I've come to in my life right now, and through many of the masters I have the privilege of being around, is that I'm looking forward to a time. I had a healer say that he was really looking forward to a time where disease was unnecessary. And what I loved about that I captured for myself about that, was that I did look around myself and I see the example of disease being a place where people do, for some reason, find out who loves them, find out who really cares, find out the meaning of life, finding out the value of a leaf on the tree and the birds going by and the air that they can feel because they, one now appreciates it. And I love the concept of just being there without the suffering. Like you were saying, some people, arrive at this place. And I think it is possible, and I'm looking forward to having more of that for all humanity.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I do hold it a little differently. And let me say, as we do this, and I love that, we are circling or might see things a little differently, let me pause for a minute to bring into the notion of the Native American elder circles. And now, when folks, and they still, in those traditions, when they meet, the elders meet, they meet in circle, not just for equity, but so that every one of them will have a direct view of the center. Because they know and they believe that to apprehend, to glimpse the totality of this mystery of life, we need everyone's view. So I want to now go back to what you shared, and add, I believe because of that we gather meaning, we don't choose between meaning.
Beautiful.
We gather meaning. And so as I get older, I'm not really interested in debate or argument or persuasion. I'm interested in adding what we all see and feel that's real for each of us, and sitting with the totality of it. So let me add to what you said and offer from my experience, and which I would never have had if not for my cancer journey. And that is that I think that suffering, pain and suffering, is like erosion in the natural world. I don't know that we're ever free of all of it. It's how the world forms and comes apart and forms again. How much it takes place and priority in our life, I think, can shift, and whether it's in perspective. But it is something that we grow through. So, the world, the natural elements are eroded by wind, weather, water, fire, air. And actually, take for example, cliffs by the sea. They are pounded for thousands of years by the water and reduced to their beauty. And then we go on vacation, we save our money and go to see their beauty. And we don't know how rocks speak or if they speak, but it may not be that pleasant for them.
Or the trees that are bent in gnarled ways and everything.
Yeah, but I believe that we are eroded to our beauty if we can hold each other up to it. I think that whatever you believe is larger than us, and whatever name you give to that, I think the universe has, by design, has been made just difficult enough that we need each other to ensure the journey of love. So I feel like we will, the Buddhists speak about pain as the friction of the wheel of life. And that we, and in their sense, which is a beautiful, interesting way to look at it, they define suffering as when we try to stop the wheel of life, we double the amount of pain we're given. Imagine an ant trying to stop the earth from turning on its axis. That's how
that's painful.
Possible it is for us to stop the wheel of life. But we can work with the wheel of life. And we can work with what we're given, and with the erosion, the friction of life as we meet it.
Beautiful. Well, one of the things that you were talking about in your book, and I do so appreciate that, because for me, I haven't had the health challenges. I do have the heartbreak challenges or feelings of life. Again, with what I do, I'm very aware of what's going on in Rwanda or Nepal or Iraq right now, and and it just breaks my heart open all the time. And I appreciate it. I was speaking to someone about this recently, about the fact that my son, actually, we were talking about relationships, and he's going through some stuff with his girlfriend, and I was saying that I really appreciate the fact that I'm a person that doesn't do drugs or drinking or whatever. I don't numb myself. I just go through the pain, and it's hard, and I cry, and I feel it. I feel so many things so deeply, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I love that I'm like that. And it's not always fun, but I just can't imagine not being like that. So I just share that with you. And in the process of creation, I think that that's part of the process of creation in life is the breaking down and the the renewing, and that's again part of the cycles of life. Every aspect of all of, like you're saying, the water, air, fire, wind, all of that is constantly recreating.
And again, it's more like, in the way that we talk about physics and the gravity, it's not to, again, elevate or glorify suffering. Nobody likes to suffer, but it's more descriptive to me, like a form of spiritual physics, the way things work. One of the things that's so humbling, a paradox, I speak of paradox a lot because it's a great teacher, and it has been a great teacher. And let me just say that, we could, for our conversation, we could talk about paradox as any moment where more than one thing is true at the same time. And the mind can't solve paradox. The heart can only embrace paradox and hold what seems like dissonant truths until the heart reveals a deeper logic of the spirit. And I think for instance, one of the great paradoxes of life is that no one can live your life for you, or feel what you have to feel, or see what you see, and no one can make it alone.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah. And as we move through life, as we work toward things, one of the other humbling I think transformation points that I've learned and experienced and continue to experience is that sooner or later, no matter how hard we work, no matter how much help we have, no matter how blessed or lucky we are, or whatever resources we have, sooner or later, every single person alive doesn't get what they want. And that's not to be pessimistic or, a downer. And it's not to minimize the things we want. There's a big difference. Sometimes the things we want are, I don't want a loved one to die. I don't want to lose, if I'm a singer, I don't want to lose my voice. So when we do lose things, there is a whole other journey or an initiation that we help each other through. So it's not to minimize, and that's very different than if I want a new car. But sooner or later, and this is so interesting, we all experience the humility of not getting what we want. And what that does to us is it breaks our self-reference.
Ooh.
All of a sudden, for the first time, in a deep way, we realize that the nature of life is not just about us. And now we're forced into a conversation. This is when I think, or I've experienced, that a depth of the spiritual journey begins, because it doesn't mean that we never want anything again. It doesn't mean that there's nothing wrong with wanting things or working toward things. But what it does is it opens us into a lifelong conversation. What kind of part am I? And what kind of whole, W-H-O-L-E? What kind of, am I a bird in a tree? Am I a star in the sky? Am I a moon that reflects the source so others can see their way? Am I a rung in a ladder that helps other people climb over obstacles? What kind of part am I in the stream of life? And so now there's a different conversation that begins, and a depth of the spiritual journey starts to unfold.
Oh my goodness. Well, that is so beautiful. And two things I wanted to point out that I loved so much in this book, which, by the way, I found stunning inside the miracle. I just
Oh,
found it
thank
stunning.
you.
And I have 7,000 ways to listen here, and reduce to joy, and of course, the power of the heart, and the Book of Awakening, which I just I don't even know how to describe to you guys. If you have not read this book, this is a book that you just need to have on your bedside to just read a few pages every day, because it's like a truffle of beauty and knowledge and depth, and oh, Mark,
Oh,
goodness.
thank you. Thank
One thing that I wanted to mention, actually, as you're saying that, I want to read one little bit. May I? I love this
Sure.
part. I think I read this in a Book of Awakening too. This is one part. It's on page 191, and it goes like this: full of light, everything happens at once, not pain-free, but unencumbered. I'm surprised to discover that loving yourself is like feeding a clear bird no one else can see. You must be still and offer your palm full of secrets like delicate seed. As she eats your secrets, no longer secrets, she glows and you lighten, and her voice, which only you can hear, is your voice bereft of plans. And the light through her belly will bathe you till you wonder why the gems in your palm were ever fisted. Others will think you crazed to wait on something no one sees. But the clear bird only wants to feed and fly and sing. She only wants light in her belly. And once in a great while, if someone loves you enough, they might see her rise from the nest beneath your fear. Oh my God.
Oh, well, thank you.
Ooh.
I think uh, one of the great comforts and resources for every one of us is, and this is also one of the purposes of love, is to discover and rediscover that we are complete as we are. We are more than enough as we are. That it was Plato who said we are born whole, W-H-O-L-E, but we need each other to be complete. We are born with everything we need, and yes, being in the world, we need to do things and make things and repair things and go to the store and get milk and fill up the car with gas. But and that's part of the journey of being here.
Yes.
So, we have so much emphasis on being because we are out of balance with doing. But in truth, being and doing are like the left hand and the right hand, or the left foot and the right foot. We need both to walk and to embrace and to hold and to do things. So, if we are good at one, I think what's incumbent on us is to put effort into the other so we can be balanced. Not just to say, oh, well, I'm just not good at, that's not my thing. Well, no, it's all part of who we are. And
yes.
And I think that I invite people. I just came from I'm back out on the road as of this past weekend, and just did a retreat, led a retreat up in Massachusetts. And one of the things I was talking about with folks there is, can you give some thought, and I offer this to our listening audience, can you give some thought to, is there one or two foundational stories in your life that you can return to that will help you know who you are, that will help you remember and restore trust in life when you lose it? Because this is what I call part of our personal mythology. Myths, the great myths throughout time, they all began as very personal stories that carried so much meaning that they were told and retold, and a lot of the very personal details fell away, and the essence of the stories was carried on. But every one of us, myths are told so that we can keep in view what is hard to keep in view. So, a story that's mythic for me goes all the way, I just turned 65, but going all the way back to I was 8 or 9, and my Jewish grandmother, who lived in Brooklyn, who I was very close to, and I loved to stay with her, and I would get the chance to go visit her and stay for a week at a time. And I was in her little apartment, and there was a dusty old basement underneath her kitchen. And I was down there, and I found which I didn't know what it was at the time, but I found my grandfather's Talmud.
Oh, my.
From Russia. And she came down the stairs and discovered me looking at this old relic. And she was very moved. She was probably in her 60s then. She lived to be 94. And she took me, she sat on the steps and took me between her legs and put her arms around me. We looked through the Talmud. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what, it was in a strange language to me. But then she whispered more firmly than anyone I'd ever heard whisper. And she said, "You are why I came to this country."
Oh.
And then she said, I love you like life itself.
Mm.
And she pressed my hands to the Talmud, and holding my hands, she said, "These, my hands, are the oldest things you own." And then she waddled back up the stairs to her kitchen. And I think that she was the first one in my life who said, "You don't have to become anything. You don't have to do anything. You are fine just as you are."
Yeah. Ooh.
And I'm sure that, each of us has, whether it was a person or a moment in nature or a moment of self-reliance or a moment when we stood up taller than we thought we could, I think that every one of us has a foundational story like that, that when we're not feeling so great and we're not feeling solid, we can return to remind us that who we are is more than enough.
Well, that is such a beautiful story. And what I want to add to that is, it sort of chokes me up to say this to you. I read so many of your books, and specifically in Inside the Miracle, there's a lot about you speaking about how you wanted to be, sort of great, at a certain point in your life. You wanted to be an amazing writer. You wanted to be out there. You wanted to be, a big deal. I'm using my words. And then at some point and I don't know you, so this is just coming from someone, a witness, but I was thinking this when I was reading all of this and thinking about you and the power of the heart and just everything that I've seen about you, that you at some point let that go and you have just become so great. What you write and what you do and how you influence people and what you bring to everything you do and how incredibly gorgeously significant your presence was in the power of the heart. And so by letting that go, it's sort of an example, all of us, by letting that go, you have become so great and so worthwhile. And of course, we all know that we already are when we're born and all that, but just as a place that you've put yourself in the world to choose to be a writer and a storyteller and a person, out there in the public eye, I'm so inspired by you. So I just
thank
want to share that.
Very touching and kind of you. And and let me talk about that a little bit, because I think it's very important that yes, like anyone, when I started out, I hoped with the best of intentions, with seriousness and dedication. I hoped when I realized that I was a poet, which really, at an early age, God spoke to me through metaphor. I didn't know what spirit, God, universe, poet, I didn't have any idea what any of that was. And, as I became attached at an early age to this identity of being a poet, so that's where, I found my way. And like anyone, so I was dedicated, and I hoped, I prayed, maybe if I worked really hard, I might write one or two poems that might be worthwhile or even great. And then, in my early 30s, I got knocked upside down by cancer. And now it really wasn't important anymore to try to write great poems. I needed to discover true poems that would help me live and make it to tomorrow. And now, all these years later, I want to just be the poem.
Oof.
I just want to be the poem. And so, it's so, and wonderfully, my work is being received now, and a lot of that has to do with Oprah kindly receiving and supporting my work. But the work, the real work inside hasn't changed.
Mm.
And it really, having almost died, and let me tell you, I was about 5-6 years out of this journey, and I was going for yearly checkups to my oncologist, and waiting in the waiting room, and I went, and of course, even though I felt fine, I was worried, like everybody is. Well, I don't know, I feel fine, but I felt fine when it all started. um, and and I came out of my appointment, and everything was fine for another year, and I felt relieved, and it was a sunny day, and I was getting ready to walk out of the waiting room through the glass doors back into my life when someone else in the waiting room collapsed.
Mm.
There was a code red, and people came to help her and brought her away into some other place where there were more medical tools to help. And there I was, just standing there, looking at the door back out into my life. And I thought, but for a hiccup of God, you could be talking to her today, and I might have died that day.
Yes.
And so I never, ever, so, now just extrapolate that to what we've been talking about my work or anybody's work or what we accomplish or not. And, I never take for granted it doesn't have to be this way.
Mm.
Doesn't have to be this way. And there's a great mystery. And so that life is horizontal, not vertical. I think we're mistaught in our ambition and when we're little and when we go to school that we're climbing some kind of career hill to get to the top. Well, life has kind of knocked that on the side for me, and I am glad and grateful to have discovered that we're all the same 6 inches from the curb in the sky. And it doesn't matter. The biggest blessing out of all of what's happened with my work is that I get to have conversations like this with you.
Oh, thank you. Ooh.
I get to meet people like I did this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's more for all of us like a stone, a pebble that drops in a lake and it ripples out in all directions.
Yes.
Than climbing anywhere. And so let me say this about what I've been learning in the last 15, 20 years about ambition and dreams and goals. Now, there's nothing wrong with these things. It's fine to work toward things, to strive toward things, to be devoted and have dreams. But I think what happens is we hold on to them too tightly. I think that what's happened to me is discovering that all of our dreams and ambitions and goals are kindling for the heart to inhabit its aliveness.
Mm.
It doesn't matter whether, we work really hard and maybe once in a while our dreams may come true, but often they don't. But what's more important is sometimes we come true.
Oh my goodness.
And that is worth all the dreams. So I have come to understand and feel that our gifts, let's take a match, like a match that you would light a stove with, a wooden match. Well, we all know that we look at the match before it's lit, and we know the flame is in that match.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't reveal itself until it's struck against a surface.
Mm.
And so too our gifts we carry our gifts dormantly in each of us, and they don't show their light until our gifts are struck against the needs of the world.
Oof. Whoa. One thing that I want to say that as you're saying this, it made me think of something in the book, and you were talking about, let's say, gateways, and just also let's extrapolate this a little bit to the journey. And in the movie The Lion King, there's this moment where the lion comes to the gate and tries to get in and tries to get in and tries to get in. But of course, all the viewers, the kids, and everyone who's watching sees that there's only just a door, but right around it are the leaves and trees, and you can just walk through. And the lion's freaking out about not getting through the gate. And it made me think of the beautiful arboretum that I think it was an arboretum that you went to in, I believe, Canada.
Yes.
Where you, so do you want to tell that story?
Yes, sure. In fact, I was just with my dear friend this weekend, Robert, who joined me at this retreat so we could see each other. So I have my oldest friend, Robert. He lives in Albany, New York. So he and I were making our way to Montreal to see the botanical gardens, which have the largest bonsai collection in North America. And I had researched and found out when it is open and where it is and how to get there. And at that time, we were living in Albany, so we drove 5 hours. We got into the hotel. It was a beautiful day. We dropped our things, and we made our way over to the botanical gardens. And as we walked through acres of other kinds of displays and gardens, we got to where the bonsai were supposed to be, and there, before us, was this huge Chinese wall and a huge gate with a lock on it, as far as you could see. And we went up to it, and we tried to get in, and you couldn't. It was locked, and I was beside myself. Because this actually was a gift to my friend from me, and I was feeling like we did all of this. This is supposed to be open. Who do I talk to? Blah, blah, blah. What's going on? And then all of a sudden, as I'm getting upset and trying to see if this lock can come open, my friend Robert's nowhere to be seen. Now I say, great. Now he's wandered off too. And as I'm getting all irritated, I hear his voice off in the distance calling me. So frustrated, I go, oh God, okay. So I start to follow his voice. And as I walk just beyond, as far as we could see, this wall was a facade.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
There were acres of the largest collection of bonsais in North America were in an open field, and all we had to do was walk around the symbolic gate, and there we were. And it was quite a lesson, humbly, because what it says to us is before we rail against a locked gate, make sure it's a gate in the first place. And I was there trying to open this lock, and it wasn't even a gate.
I just love that story. I love it. And another thing that I want to bring up, because I know we have about 6 minutes, I actually play piano, and one of the things that I loved hearing, I've not ever played it, but the Mozart's The Table Duet. And I
my goodness, yes.
Love that. If you want to chat about that a little bit.
Well, Mozart, this remarkable genius, one of the things he did, apparently for fun, because he could, is he took one sheet of music, and if you put two pianos facing each other, and then he took one sheet of music, and on that sheet, from what would be the top down, he wrote one piece of music for that piano to play, and without moving the sheet of music, what would appear to that person from the bottom up, but from the other side facing it, he wrote a harmonized part of the same notes, so that one way it would be read from top down, one piano could play it, and without moving it from the bottom to the top, the same notes would be read as a harmonizing part, and the two facing pianists would play together. The table duet is what it was called. And I use this as a metaphor for a relationship, because at our best, whether it's lovers or family or friends, we face each other like those two pianos, and we often hear each other upside down. But when we can listen and honestly reflect back to each other, we wind up playing our own table duet.
Isn't that fantastic.
It's remarkable.
I just and my stepmom is a concert pianist, and I wanted to have her get this out for me and actually play it because we have two pianos together in her
Oh
home.
my God!
Yeah, so I was like, okay, this is awesome. We have to get at that. So we're going to get at that. And another thing I want to get at, I'm going to talk about some of the things you were talking about. You're on the road again, so I want to make sure that we let people know where they can find you. And I want to just quickly do that. John may be able to bring it up, and I'm going to mention it that April 1 to 3, of course, this year, 2016, Pine Manor Retreat Center inside the Miracle weekend retreat, and that is going to be actually we'll put information on about that, and that's going to be in that's the weekend retreat in Pine Manor, and then on the 5th, All Saints Church in Pasadena, and I will be there, Mark, so we will be able to play together there.
Oh, great! That'll be wonderful.
I'd love to see you, and that's 7 to 9:30 at the in Pasadena at the All Saints Church. And then on the 7th, in Spirit...
Well, actually, the 7th we're pulling back on because the other ones are getting so big. So the 7th won't happen, but the second weekend will.
The April 8th through the 11th at Pine Manor? Okay. So that one will be happening too. And then we will be able to... You guys can go to my page and I'll... and we can also... You can also go to Mark Nepo, yes? To find out information. So I know you guys all know how to spell that, but it's just in case you're just listening. MarkNep as in Peter O. And I know we're going to be coming to the end, but I also wanted to talk about, I think end perhaps with, there's so much more to talk about, but I loved what you were talking about with Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. It's one of my favorite elements of creativity ever. And I have written here, fire without witness, mythic and biblical voices inhabiting. So I think I was just taking some notes from something that you said. But
that Fire Without Witness was an epic poem that I wrote. That there's still copies around, but I think it's out of print. But there are still copies available. You can find them. Where all the voices, as Michelangelo paints the 25 panels on the ceiling, those characters come alive and tell their stories. You hear Michelangelo and all of those characters, though he's not aware of them, that they've come alive. Only you as the reader are.
Oh, how beautiful is that? Oh my gosh. Well, I want to see... there's a couple of other questions I want to. John is saying that we're just about to go, but I want to remind everyone, of course, that I'm speaking with the world-renowned Mark Nepo. And guys, if you have not ever read his anything, please do yourself the gift. I'm not kidding. I say this sometimes, but I'm really not kidding about this because it's something I can't really describe it. I feel like we've done pretty well today, Mark. But it's so deep that I will be going into my caves. I absolutely again make that declaration. And here are a few more caves to go out with. In conversation with a friend or loved one, describe a time when the voice inside you changed its language and how you came to understand its new way of speaking. What has that voice inside been saying to you lately? I mean, don't we just want to answer that question at some point? We are drawn to follow what matters. This is another question. This is another cave. This is another Grand Canyon. In conversation with a friend or loved one, which I love that part too, by the way, describe 3 ways that what matters has appeared to you. What have these experiences shown you about the nature of what matters and how you relate to it? And a couple other things that you do in the questions, Mark, which I really appreciate, is that there's sometimes you ask, invite us to go deeply about somebody who really means something in our life. And perhaps we've never been able to share that with them. And you invite us to really dig in and just really crystallize that and then share it with the person. And so I just really, really want to thank you for that, because I think our connection is so important. Our hero's journey, alone and together, are what it's about. And my engineer is saying we have 1 minute. So I'm going to say, guys, follow me on Twitter and all that stuff. And I feel like I'm racing to the end, which is not how I wanted it to be with Mark Nepo, because I love our pace of being just in this journey. But I'll just let you kind of take us out. I think we have like 30 seconds, but I just love you to pieces.
Well, thank you so much. It's a joy to be a part of this. And I just want to say for anyone who's listening, just to reaffirm the gifts that everyone is born with, and that this journey through life, through this messy, magnificent journey of being human, is designed so that our gifts will light and meet each other.
Oh. So until next time, everyone, remember you have the power of one. I adore you all. And seriously, until next time, remember you do make a difference. Bye for now.